I don't know how many people are going to disagree with this, but I'm basing this on the actions that I've seen. So what I believe is that AI is going to change things much faster than people think.
All right, welcome back to the PPC Mastery Podcast. We have another special guest today. We have the one and only, the legend, Mike Rhodes. He is, founder of Mike Rhodes Ideas, the creator of the PMax script. But apart from that, he also built and sold an agency in the past. He wrote one of the, maybe even the number one best-selling Google Ads book in the past. And he's building lots of epic scripts and products and things, and always doing public speaking gigs and sharing really cool insights on a high level of the industry. And it's always such a pleasure to talk to this man. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast. He's been sharing his knowledge with us in the PPC Hub many times. So I'm super excited to finally chat to you on the podcast. Welcome, Mike.
Mate, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Anytime. So I would like to start this conversation, Mike, on a sort of easy start. Tell us something about yourself that most people don't know.
I used to fly helicopters. Since I was, nice. I think 6, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. When I took 3 months off in between uni and happened to be in Hawaii. And I called up every helicopter company in Hawaii, there's 6 of them, and said, I don't know, I was sitting on the beach for 2 weeks. Like, I was cleaning toilets at the hostel. I was working in a pub. And I was just like, if not now, then when? So I called everybody and talked my way into a job the next day with a little helicopter company down at Honolulu Airport. My bosses, I had 2 bosses. They were awesome. One of them was the helicopter pilot in Magnum PI. And I somehow talked my way into having free training. Because I said, like, I'll work in the office all summer. I'll computerize your systems. I'll get you, drag you into the 21st century, and you will pay me half in cash and half in flying time. And they said, great. If you can convince that Swiss guy who's just landed here to do it for that deal, then yes, we'll do the deal. So I learned to fly in Hawaii, flying around Kauai and Molokai. It was epic. And when I finally got home to the UK a few years later, I ended up working for the most prestigious helicopter company in Europe, Lord Hanson's helicopter company, flying around people like the Queen and Bodhi and Dyad and Schumacher.
You did that.
And Bill Gates. I wasn't a pilot. I wasn't flying those guys. I didn't have nearly enough hours to fly those guys. I was working in flight ops, but yeah, very closely with the pilots. But no, I did some flying in the evenings and stuff, and every now and again I had to put on a white shirt and look special and go sit up the front next to the real pilot. Don't tell anyone about that. But no, I didn't fly those guys, but it was pretty epic.
Wow, so cool. I have so many questions, but maybe for another time. Yeah, that's so cool, man. But you don't do that anymore now then, I guess.
I haven't flown for so long, no. It was my birthday the other day, last week, and the kid said, what do you want? And I'm like, I never know, but I'm like, not socks. So I said, get me some paraglide lessons. I used to paraglide as well, and I haven't paraglided in, 15, 20 years. So I'm like, get me some paraglide lessons. I'm going to this summer, I'm going to retrain and re-get my paraglide license.
Nice.
I just love just being in the air. So yeah.
Epic. Also, in the intro, I forgot to mention, which you have said to me, you're also a dad and a husband. So I did want to put that out there.
Very important. That's the first 2 words on my LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
Like, nothing is more important than that. Yep.
And I agree. All right, so let's transition to Google Ads and marketing side of things. What is something that you believe about Google Ads that most people would disagree with?
I don't know how many people are going to disagree with this, but I'm basing this on the actions that I've seen. So what I believe is that AI is going to change things much faster than people think. And I think missing out on this initial wave, I think we as humans, I think that's a mistake. I think we as humans tend to look at something, maybe try it once and go, that's not very good. And we kind of write it off. You know, there's this weird little memory in the back of our brains for websites that are crap. That's why we don't go back and click on that ad again, because we just sort of somehow remember, that was rubbish. And I think a lot of people did that early on with ChatGPT, which has been out almost 600 days now, in the middle of 2024. Yes, it wasn't ChatGPT 4 at the beginning, but a lot has happened in those 600 days. And I think it's the pace of change that most people don't see. They tried it, they disregard it, and they don't go back and try it again every 3 months, every 6 months. They don't think about how could this be useful, because it isn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it isn't like normal software. Normal software, you go, you use it, and it does the same thing every single time because it's built by rules. If this, then that. AI isn't that, and it's going to be different every single time, depending on how you prompt it. Give it the same prompt, you might get two different answers on 2 different days. You might get 2 different answers 2 minutes apart. So I think it's all of those things that have people thinking about AI the wrong way, maybe waiting for Google just to do whatever Google's going to do to jam AI into the product that we all use. But I think it's going to disrupt every agency. It's going to change an awful lot. And I think people are sleeping. I think the majority of agencies are sleeping on it.
All right, so let's definitely dive into that. But before we do that, I would like to take a step back, and because I think you have a really interesting journey and background in PPC. As we mentioned in the intro briefly, like you wrote a book, you skilled and sold an agency, and now you're building scripts and other things. But could you talk a little bit about your journey and basically like your career and how going through all these things sort of got you in the place where you are right now doing the things that you're doing?
I'll give you the longer backstory, but I'll try and shorten it up for you because I know time is always limited. My first business I started in New Zealand. I'd left the UK. I decided I was heading to Australia. Started the business in New Zealand. Went for 3 weeks. Ended up staying for 3 years. That business was successful because of a book which was doing the rounds 20 years ago called The 𝗚Myth by Michael Gerber. When I got to Australia, I discovered there was something called an 𝗚Myth coach. I'm like, Jesus, that would have helped. So I became an 𝗚Myth coach. I wrote to Gerber. He invited me to California. Long story, but I became an 𝗚Myth coach. And I sucked at being an 𝗚Myth coach because I was young and stupid and thought I could solve every business problem because of this system. What every person said, just about every person said, who I went to visit to try and sell this thing, was, mate, can you just get me more leads? So when I saw Google Ads for the first time in 2004, it was just like, oh my God, this is what they all want and need. This is the future for small business. I didn't buy Google shares back then. I should have done, but I just thought this is what they want. They're doing letterbox drops and yellow pages and radio advertising. Not much of it's working. They can't measure anything. And then here's this thing. What do you mean I only show ads to people looking for me and I only pay if they're interested enough to click? This is unbelievable. So I kind of dropped everything and I ended up running someone else's business for a bit. I ended up being given half of a business, half of an e-com business, who said like, mate, I don't want you to consult to me, have half my business. And in 3.5 weeks, I think we sold 100 grand's worth of stuff. And it was just like, that was the proof I needed. This thing works. And my MO has always been when I find something new, I just want to tell everybody about it. So I was telling my mastermind and all the small business owners I knew, and everyone's like, mate, just whatever. Like, it took me 2 years to start the agency after that, of people saying, I don't really care how it works, mate. Can you do it for me? Yeah, okay. So for cases of beer here and a round of golf there and a chat, and I started doing it. And that's how the agency got started. But since the very first week, really, I've been teaching Google Ads to anyone that would listen. I did my first course back in 2008, one of those, like bubble wrap, 3-ring binders with the DVDs in and like 3 different versions of it. I've discovered along the way that I'm a teacher at heart. So when I caught up with Perry Marshall again, he's the guy that I learned about Google Ads from back in 2004. Then he had this epic small conference in Maui. So going full circle, going back to Hawaii, which was awesome, back in 2010. And there's so many stories I could tell about that, but I was really strategic about it and managed to get some one-on-one time with him. I had this huge mind map. I had mind mapped all of Google Ads, printed it out on this massive sheet of paper, and I rolled it out on the table in front of Perry, and he's like, "This is really cool. We can do something with this." Like, I can remember it so clearly, standing outside this country club in Maui, the rolling hills in the distance, and him looking at this thing. And that's where my life changed, really, because from there on, I ran all of the Google Ads training for Perry's community, which is like 500,000 people strong. We wrote the book together. I dived in, 4th edition of the book. It was already the world's best-selling book on Google Ads. So there's a tip as aspiring young writers anywhere. Find someone that's already really successful with their book and then come along and help them for a future version. Like, it wasn't successful because of me. Perry didn't want to do the technical stuff anymore. So I did all the tech stuff and he did all the fun stories. And it was just a really good match. I did that for probably about 10 years. Meanwhile, built the agency. The book led to lots of speaking gigs outside of Australia. So I did a lot in the States, really enjoyed going over to traffic and conversion and catching up with friends like Tom Breeze and Molly Pittman. And we all caught up in Italy a few months ago. Molly got married in Italy and it was wonderful to see that whole crew again, Russ Hennebury and Ollie Bilson. That was really good. And the agency just kind of just right place, right time. I've always fluked things like that. There's an awful lot of luck involved in this stuff. And the agency just grew and grew and grew, even through COVID. I think we pretty much doubled the team size through COVID. And as you mentioned, I sold last year. My kids at the time were not quite teenagers. They're 10 and 13 now. And I'm very, very aware that this window of them wanting to hang out with me is closing. And I just didn't want to waste another day of that. And I wanted to go all in on AI. So I'm not working particularly hard at the moment, but I am thinking a lot about AI, as you mentioned, creating tools for the community. And I just love building stuff, but I'm spending an awful lot of time with them as well, which is great.
Yeah, I love that. And it definitely shows like we share that value of family. I don't have kids yet myself, but I do understand that at some point priorities are going to shift. And because it's so easy to waste those years. And it's really cool to see that you consciously made that shift to spend more time with them.
I think I made that decision stupidly early in my life. Like as a 10-year-old, I decided, I remember going and chatting with a mate of dad's. I think I was 16 and he said, "Oh, you want to be a pilot?" I said, yeah, definitely. I want to be a pilot. I like helicopters, but you work for I think he worked for British Airlines or something. And I'm like, well, I'd consider doing something like that. He said, "What else is important to you?" I said, "I don't know, but I really want to have a family one day." He said, "You'll never see them. You're traveling 15 days of the month. If you want to see your family grow up, being a commercial pilot is not the way to do it." Okay, cross. No, not doing that. Like really early, I decided that was important to me. So I don't know. It's just, one of those values that it's sacred time, right? So there's too many people, I think, wake up, 55 and go, "Shit, can I do it again, please?" That wasn't the way I wanted it to turn out. No, it's not.
No do-overs. Yeah. So here we are. And as you said, you're going really deep on AI. You're building things with AI. You're building scripts with AI, and doing keynotes about AI. I would love to know before we dive into how you can leverage AI within Google Ads. I would love to hear your personal opinion about the current state of AI in general, but also as it relates to marketing. Is it opportunity, threat, something in the middle? Just your overall opinion of AI.
Yeah, I think there are so many ways it can be used. I mean, the G is generative, right? But it's also another meaning of GPT is general purpose technology. That acronym has been around a long time too. So computer chips, mobile phones, we've had these big turning points where this general purpose thing can be applied to so many areas. And that's why I think it is, yes, it's probably overhyped as we've talked about previously, but I just think it is going to make so many big changes. Even if it never gets better than it is today, it's going to take a while for the current state of things to make its way into enterprise in particular. Where can it help? I kind of tend to break it down into a few areas to make it easy for people to picture, because everybody's situation is different. So obviously it can help a lot with words, with language. So it can help write things, whether that's a script or an email or a presentation, just working with words. But that ability for it to take on different personas, if you prompt it properly, so it can play the part of a customer and you can bounce ideas off it. I tend to think of it too in terms of 3 levels. So there's all these different ways it can help: words, images and pictures, videos, code is a big one for me. But then you've also got this kind of sort of teacher mentor, sort of like looking up, somebody that can help you learn something. So when I started coding again a couple of years ago, I hired a JavaScript mentor, and I'd spend an hour each week with them talking about code. How do I do this? How could I think about this? What's another way to do it? What's a more elegant way to do this? And then 𝗏GPT came along and I didn't need him anymore. So there's that sort of top level. There's this sort of like looking down version, which is sort of that over eager intern that can get stuff wrong, but can work really hard, really long, and deliver really good value. And then I heard this phrase today, which I'd never heard before. I need to look up where it comes from, but rubber ducking. And it's this idea that you have a rubber duck sitting on your desk that you can talk through hard problems with. So, I mean, it could be anything, right? You could just like have this weird 3D printed metal thing and you can talk to it. But it's like the rubber duck that talks back. I use this almost every day on my walks now, is using the 𝗏GPT app on my phone and brainstorming with it and bouncing ideas off it and getting questions back and ideas back and thoughts and reflections. And it's just incredibly useful in that sort of almost like peer relationship. So you've got this like mentor, coach, junior intern, but also peer. So if anyone is not like, Jesus, what's he talking about? I think you can apply this to almost any area of your business. You want to brainstorm some new strategy. You want to learn something without judgment. You know, the classrooms that are using this really well are finding that the kids sometimes prefer learning some of the stuff from the AI because they don't feel stupid like they do in class, having to put their hand up, being judged by everybody for not knowing something that maybe I should know. And so it's a really safe, easy way to learn. And of course, this thing is so general, you know, it's so broad that if you like soccer or, I don't know, underwater hockey playing or something, you can say like, give me an example in this style, make it more complicated, make it easier. Tell me again, like I'm a 12-year-old, help me understand this. And it can just regenerate and regenerate and regenerate. And I think, I should probably stop there.
No, that's good. That's ask for your opinion, and that is great. So, would you consider it as an opportunity for people in marketing, as Google Ads specialists, to be able to learn how to leverage these kinds of tools?
Yes, in a word, I think it's going to change a lot of white collar work. And most of us in agencies are in the professional services game. And there is so much of that work that is going to change because of AI, I believe. And I can't really understand why people aren't pushing the boundaries a little bit more, experimenting and playing a bit more. I think the argument against it is it's often wrong and I don't have time. Well, that's just a priorities thing. Everybody has the same amount of time. It's just how you prioritize that time, and how you prioritize another value I think we share is education and learning and spending time every day sharpening the axe and getting better. And if you're not skating to where the puck is going and thinking about the future of what you need to learn, then I just think you're going to fall behind. It's the pace of it that makes this so important, right? If you think back to, I read my first book about the internet in 95. I had my first email address in 88. That's how old I am. If you didn't start a website in 95, it didn't matter. If you didn't start that for 10 years, if you didn't roll out a mobile website a year after the iPhone came out, it didn't matter if you didn't do that for another 5 years if your website wasn't mobile responsive. But the pace of this is so quick that if you sleep on this and think, oh, I'll catch up in a few years like I did with everything else, it all worked out fine. It won't be fine this time because it's going to change so rapidly that those people that dive in, scuff their knee a bit, try things, fail a lot, but learn while they're doing that, they're going to do really, really well because they're going to stay up with this thing as the pace of that just increases and increases. And if you try and dive in and start learning this stuff 2-3 years from now, I think you've missed a huge opportunity. Yes, if you start now, a lot of the things that you try won't work. We can talk about, the 𝗚hisperer script that I put together as an example of this, but just because it doesn't work sometimes isn't a really good excuse for not experimenting with it, I think.
Hey guys, real quick, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future, and feel free to share with a friend, colleague, or family member, because that's the only way we can grow this show. All right, back to the show. So you mentioned that it's going to replace a lot of white-collar tasks. Could you give some examples of that?
So yeah, I've been saying since 2017, when I first went really, really deep into AI, I was talking about it at traffic and conversion. And I said back then, I don't think it's going to replace all of our jobs, but it is going to replace a lot of the tasks that make up our jobs. And so if there's this tool that can make you twice as efficient, 5 times as efficient. I saw a coding video today. The guy reckons it's made him 20 times more efficient as a coder. That's where I sort of feel I'm at. I'm at least 10 times more efficient than I was a year ago at coding. And I spend a fair bit of my week now coding. I mean, the opportunity then to spend the rest of all of that time doing all this other stuff, whether that's hanging out with family, going for walks in nature, learning something else, or applying those skills. So yeah, let's break it down. Writing. We spend a lot of time writing. We spend a lot of time in meetings. You used to, back in the day, hire someone to sit in the corner and take meeting notes. We all have tools now that, I'm doing this workshop at the moment. I'm sure you've seen the same thing. And people send their otters and their fireflies and whatever to your meeting that's just going to take the notes and go back to them. But even in in-person meetings in the office, you can have an AI summarize all of that and listen to the meeting and assign action items after the meeting. Anywhere that you're using writing, anywhere you're using words in the business, whether that's strategy planning, replying to customer support tickets. Imagine for most people waking up to 38 draft email replies instead of a full inbox. I think everybody would like that. And yes, it's not going to be perfect yet because it doesn't have the full context of your life and of that whole project. And it isn't thinking 3 months into the future. It's not going to write exactly the same email as you are. You're not going to go through and hit send 38 times quickly, but it solves the blank page problem. Writing scripts. I have this sort of mental model that I put together a few years ago of where I think our industry is going, and that is creative, platform, and data. And the importance of platform I see shrinking over time. Yes, you still need to master it, but it isn't the be-all and end-all that it was, say, 5 years ago. If you
with platform, you mean whatever you do. With platform, you mean whatever you do inside of Google Ads or the marketing platform you're using.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, it was enough to know the platform really well. You could get away with pretty shoddy creative because often clients wouldn't give you great creative. And on the data side, like if you weren't doing server side and analytics wasn't installed really, really well, like most Google Analytics installs are not done particularly well, all of that didn't matter. You could still get by. And that isn't going to be the case going forward. Data becomes way more important because the machine needs that for every decision that it's making, which is everything basically inside the account. So getting your shit together around data, understanding the data that you need to give the machine to steer the machine in the right direction, that's super important. And on the other side, what are you doing on creative? And creative isn't just the ads inside the platform, using AI to write a 30-character headline. That isn't, interesting. but thinking through different offers, different pricing strategies. Most Google Ads accounts can be improved by getting out of Google Ads and thinking about everything else that isn't inside the account, fixing the website, fixing the offer. Most people never test the offer. They never test price. There's huge gains to be had there. And again, you can brainstorm and think that through and try different things in this safe environment where in the past you probably would have had 5 different meetings with various people on the team, and most meetings don't go anywhere, and you brainstorm and you think and somebody will make a decision about that at some point, and we waste so much time in meetings. On the creative side, I thought for quite a long time about buying a creative agency. Clearly, it's going to become more and more important. You know, Google have this pie chart they've been using for years about how creative is like more than 50% of the equation. And that's true if you've got your data sorted and if the machine is getting the right data through. Having a process to quickly test lots of creative is really important. I think another one of the things that people will say about generative AI is, well, it can't come up with anything new. You know, it's just regurgitating the average of all of this stuff that it's found online. And yet anybody that teaches how to have good ideas, they will say the way to have more good ideas is to have more ideas. So if you can use AI to generate 100 ideas quickly and virtually for free, within that, you're going to find 2 or 3 that you just, yes, that with a bit of that and some of this. And yeah, maybe the stuff that comes out of the machine won't be massively new or novel to you, but you can, again, use it as a starting point to fire off new ideas. Can't tell you the number of new ideas that I have while going for a walk, maybe listening to a podcast about something unrelated or brainstorming with the AI. Something will just trigger and it's like, why did I think I had this cracking idea yesterday listening to a different podcast? And then I immediately grab the app and I'm thinking about this. Help me think it through. What am I not seeing? What questions should I be asking? How would I set up a partnership program for this thing? Boom, 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 boom. And half an hour later, I've got this massive transcript and the whole thing summarized in questions and action items. And by the time I come back and sit down here, all of that is just sitting, waiting for me in the ChatGPT app. It's such a time saver.
Yeah, super nice. And I think you mentioned a few times, like, it's not perfect yet, et cetera, but I think that's probably for a lot of people, the wrong way of looking at it, to expect that it's going to be perfect, you know? Yeah. You're just as you said, you're just brainstorming with AI here. It's not the goal to get like 100-page perfect essay from it. You just want to get ideas and things to work on.
I think you said the key word is expect. It's people's expectations going in. If you have the expectation that this thing is, and I don't want to say it's like a person, you know, I always use alien intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. That I think is a good way to think about it. It's not an intern. It's not human. It's definitely not sentient or conscious, but it has remarkably human-like qualities. So it's sort of easy to anthropomorphize. So it is a bit like a particularly eager intern who is sometimes wrong, but shit, I'm wrong a lot. So if I'm using this tool that's occasionally wrong, I'm thinking of it like it's a bit like working with another person. And that's how I talk to it when I'm coding. I'm asking it to do things. I'm asking it questions. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can we change? I'll ask, like, why are we doing it this way and not that way? You know, I'm talking to it like another person. If you go in with the expectation that it's a bit like a human and sometimes humans suck at stuff too, and don't treat it like a piece of software that's going to do the same thing every single time, then I think you're much more forgiving of those mistakes and you start treating that creativity like a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. So I think one of the most important and the best ways to leverage AI within Google Ads is to have it do data analysis and to gather insights. That's also what I got from your presentation in the PPC Hub, is basically translating data into insights that you can share with clients. I think you wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's 2 different parts to that. So there's this wonderful thing in computer science circles, this algorithm or like a way of thinking, explore and exploit. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do to maybe explore a new data set that you haven't seen before, or if you don't know to ask for certain things. Now, maybe you're familiar with the data. Maybe it's a search term report and you're loading it up and you're just saying, find some insights in here. Well, that sort of general vague prompt isn't going to get you very far. But the more you push it and prod it and push it to the edges of what's possible, the better it's going to be. So you can use something like ChatGPT to explore things early on. Show me 5 different ways of visualizing this data. Show me some different charts. Show me some charts I've never heard of before. Like play with sunburst diagrams and Sankey diagrams. And then once you've found a way that works through all of this exploration, then you can start to codify that and say, actually, whenever we do n-gram analysis, I want to see a bubble chart of the individual words of search queries versus keywords, because that shows me these particular insights really, really quickly. And so you're not using the AI to always generate the same thing. You used it the first few times to get new and novel ideas, but then once you knew this is a really good way to get insights over this particular piece of data, this particular type of thing that we do all the time in the business, then turn that into some sort of automation or bit of code, or use Zapier or however you want, or hire somebody in a different part of the world that's cheaper than hiring someone locally if you need to use human automation. But these days, anything that can be checklisted can be turned into code really, really easily. So that every day when you wake up and you do this particular analysis, you have all of the information, not the raw data, but the useful information is just sitting there waiting for you in the way that you like it and the format that you like it, ready to go. Maybe you even ask the AI to come up with 5 insights and give you 5 extra questions that you'd never asked before. Tell me questions that I should ask of this data set that will enable me to have insights that I haven't yet seen. And every now and again, you get a really good question and you write that down and you add it to your list and you ask that question every time. You codify it. So, that's what I did with my audit process about 10 years ago. Excuse me, too much bubbly water. I basically took my entire audit process and turned it into this 40-page, back then it was a data studio report, and gave it away. And everybody said, you're an idiot, because we were charging maybe $2,500 for an audit back then. And I know that some of my old teams still use that freelancing to do the bulk of the work and still charge a couple of grand for audits as freelancers. And I created that tool and gave it away. I've done that with a bunch of different things over my career because I just love building stuff. But if you can codify the knowledge, whether that's your own stuff as a freelancer or your agency's knowledge, you have to turn that into some sort of process.
Yeah. And that's what you did with the PMax script, right?
Yeah, same thing, right? It's the same thread going through all this. Take this raw data, turn it into useful information. And I'm working on a thing now that gives you those insights of the data, that also gives you follow-up questions that you might want to ask of that data, and just packages all of that together just to make it nice and easy. Because you shouldn't have to be hunting around for all these different bits of information every time you want to do some work.
Interesting. So I would like to transition to your script, but before we do that, because I know that a lot of people, most people are not even experimenting with AI. And one of the things that stuck with me the most from your workshops in the PPC Hub is that you mentioned that everything is changing so fast, and just because it may not work for you right now doesn't mean that it won't in 3, 6, 12 months. So you need to continuously keep experimenting with it, because 6 months from now it's going to be, so much better than it is today. That's just a fact. Probably, yeah. But for most people, I don't think they have dabbled into AI as much, except for maybe write me a blog about quality score on ChatGPT. So for those people and basically anyone else, how do you suggest, what would you advise them on how to get started with AI? Where do you get started? Because I can also understand that it might be overwhelming to some.
One useful thing that many people have found to be useful. There's so many different starting points, but I think this is a fairly good one that covers a lot of bases, is if you can draw out a little 2x2 matrix on a piece of paper. So the vertical axis for that is how much do I enjoy doing a particular task? Do I love it? Do I hate it? Or is it meh, somewhere in the middle? And then the x-axis is how frequently do I do this thing? Is it just very, very occasionally? Or am I doing this thing at least once or twice a week? And then look at that quadrant. And then basically your job is to map all of the little tasks that you do, not the big, big jobs, but break that down into little tasks. One way to do that is what we did in 𝗚𝗵𝗲 when I was an 𝗚𝗵𝗲 coach, is you would give people a sheet of paper and literally every 15 minutes, sitting down on the desk, you would write down what you were working on for that 15 minutes. You do that for a week and you'll be amazed what that brings up. Most people won't do that. So there's a massive opportunity for you. Just doing the exercise puts you ahead of just about everybody. But then map those tasks onto that grid and then find that quadrant of stuff that I really don't like doing that I'm doing a couple of times a week. That's where you start. And you use AI, you bring AI to the table and you start to figure out ways that AI can help with some of those tasks. You're not trying to automate your job away. You're not trying to like turn everything into code, but that's stuff that you really don't like doing, that you're doing over and over again. Start there. I spoke probably a few months ago now with a consulting prospect. He's pretty high up in an organization and he's spending 15 hours a week in Excel doing the same stuff every week, getting the same reports delivered and doing the same things over and over and over and over again. And he's wasting at least 10 of those 15 hours every week. I don't know what he's being paid. Let's call it 150 grand. A quarter of his week, 40 grand a year. It's just a complete waste of bloody time that if he took the time to, or maybe he doesn't know, but like to learn or to start to automate, to codify what those things are, or even just go hire somebody for $10 an hour to do that work. I mean, I'm a big believer in starting with human automation first. If you can teach somebody else how to do the thing before you jump to trying to turn it into code, then it's generally much, much easier to tweak that process. But you can't improve a system until it's documented. You got to get something down on paper as a starting point. But you can use AI for that too. Just record a video of you doing the task. You don't even have to speak aloud anymore. I used to do this. I'd record a video, speak aloud, and then give the transcription of the video with this big ass prompt. And I'd put that into ChatGPT and get an SOP back. But Loom will do it for you now.
Yeah.
You just finish recording the video and there's a little button in Loom that turns the transcript into an SOP. It's basically there for free, but people just need to know that these things are possible, right? That's really the starting point. Have the curiosity to go find out what's possible and then carve out a little bit of time. And it only needs to be like half an hour a week. It doesn't need to be days and days and days. Yeah. Half an hour a week just to say, right, this week I'm going to focus on this bit. I'm going to figure out a way to make this task disappear, or I spend half as much time on it. A mate of mine used to have this thing across the top of his laptop that said, how do I do this so I never have to do it again? I mean, that's taking it to the extreme, right? He tried to automate, systemize everything. Yeah. But the stuff that you love, and certainly the stuff that doesn't happen very often, don't even try with that stuff yet. But start with the repetitive stuff and start with the stuff that you don't like, because that will give you the juice to make sure that you find the time. Because Jesus, if I could get rid of that 5 hours of work, oh my God, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, my sister, she has a dog training school. She's self-employed, so she's doing everything by herself. And she's really like, she used to have a partner, and now she's doing it by herself. And she's wearing all the hats, you know. She's doing the dog training, she's doing marketing, she's creating the website, writing the blogs, everything, operations, taxes, everything. So she actually went and used ChatGPT last week to create a new blog post based on the 𝗏𝗏 copywriting framework. And that was really cool to see, because she doesn't have a marketing background, but she's like self-taught. She's, super curious and smart in trying to figure these things out. And then she just thought, hey, okay, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write this blog post based on a proven framework. And I checked it, and it was actually really good. So that was, to me, like perfect execution of
awesome.
of what you can do without prior knowledge. Just ask. And even this is what I remember also from what you taught, is you can even ask it for these frameworks, and then, okay, maybe generate one based on one of those frameworks. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, the example I used in the webinar we did a few weeks ago was I wanted to write a sales letter. I suck at writing copy. And my initial prompt, this is before ChatGPT 4 came out, I think. My initial prompt was, ask me the questions that you need from me in order to write a compelling sales page for this thing. And it asked me 14 questions because I didn't know what I had. But when it asked me, what's your guarantee going to be and what are 3 testimonials, then I can go figure out what information to give to it. And then it spat out not only the sales page, but the YouTube script, the Facebook ad, the LinkedIn post, questions to ask during the onboarding process and the application process. It was, the thank you page copy, everything. It was mind blowing.
That's crazy, actually, because then it just becomes a consultant really for you. Right. Yeah.
And guess what? It knows all of the consulting frameworks from Bain and BCG and Macquarie and all of those super high paid consultants. I always wanted, one of my dreams was for our agency to basically provide those same services that your Deloitte's and PwC's gave to bigger businesses in town, but for a fraction of the price to those small businesses that really, really need that stuff. And it was just impossible because, they hire all the good grads and they pay them stupid amounts of money and promise that you're going to be a partner one day. And it's just really, really hard to find someone from that world that would come and work for what my little agency could afford to pay them and for what small businesses can afford to pay for that. But AI can do a lot of that work. It can, with a bit of prompting and a bit of massaging and a bit of work, but it could spit out or help you write a 60-page strategy document, which won't be perfect. And you would certainly not say, like, take this thing, cut, paste, and go deliver it. You would do work on it, but it can do so much of that stuff. It knows all of that stuff. It's read all of those things. It understands all of those 2x2 matrices and that all these high-paid consulting firms have churned out over the years. It's read all of those strategy books, and it can help you not only do this for your own business, but help you as an agency offer these new, better, different services to your clients. Agencies are not going away. Small businesses are more overwhelmed than ever. They need help figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah. I agree. So just want to quickly transition to your script, your PMax script, because I just think that is one of the best innovations that we've seen in the PPC world in the last 2 years, because it's giving the insights that Google is not giving us, and then some, because you've expanded upon it. But you've built that primarily with AI as well, right? Could you talk a little bit about that process of how you came up with the idea and then the execution into how it became what it is now?
Yeah, so the idea, it all probably started a couple of years ago before ChatGPT. And I had an awesome dev work for me for 8 years. She found her dream job and wandered off to do that. And I had the time, I had a GM at the time in the agency. So I had the curiosity and the time to basically sort of take over all of the scripts that she had created over 8 years. Our agency used a lot of scripts, a lot of automation, but inevitably these things, I don't know, they go out of date, stuff breaks. And straight after she'd left, stuff started breaking. I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to code again. And I'm going to dive in, which is why I got the JavaScript mentor and would sit down and code some of this stuff. And one of the things I had started doing in PMax with the team was we'd worked out fairly early on that if you looked at your total video views and your cost per view, you could work out how much PMax was spending on video. And then also if you went into listing groups and added up all of the white rows, because there's lots of duplicate information in there, but if you added up just the white rows, you could work out what you're spending on shopping you know, what you're spending on video, and then everything else has to be search and display. And then this awesome guy in Copenhagen, Tobias, showed me a way to dig into this, like grab this report and this report and this report and squish them together in this particular way. And if we make these assumptions, we can kind of work out what's display versus search. Wow. Okay. And so we just put that together, threw a free script together that went ballistic on LinkedIn. And that was it. Like for 6 months, I just gave it away. And then as the sale of the agency was finalizing, I thought, oh, I'd really love to spend more time on that. I'd been playing with ChatGPT-4. I'd been learning how to code for that year in between. Maybe I could make it better. And I just kept having ideas, and then people that were using it for free would write and DM me and say, oh, it'd be great if it did this, and could we do this, and could it have a better asset group report? And Google's changed the API a couple of times since then. So every time they came up with something new, I'd figure out a way to code it. And most requests, not all, but most requests, I would tell like, yeah, I just love solving problems. I get to spend my days now during school hours solving hard problems. And I love that thing of solving a problem that I'm fairly confident has an answer. That's the key thing for me. Like I have to believe that there is an answer to this thing, and I'm not just going to churn away for ages. Like I spent most of last week redoing this whole part of the script so that with one go, you can update all of your client spreadsheets all in one go. It's freaking awesome. I'm so excited about it. I haven't launched it yet, but it's so much fun to solve that hard problem and then to ship something. So that's really where it came from. I just gave it away for free. It did really well. So gosh, where are we now? About 9-10 months ago, I thought, why don't I do a improved version of this? Why don't I charge a tiny bit of money relative to the value that this delivers for an agency or even a freelancer? I want to make it cheap enough. I don't want to deal with recurring income and revenue and all that stuff. Let's just make it super cheap so that someone gets insights. You can use it on as many accounts as you manage, as many times as you like, free updates for life. That seems like a decent deal. Then just after that, I discovered that the, is it Jason Fried, 37 Signals, the Basecamp guys? He's bought 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.com, and he's got this whole philosophy about just charging once for software. And they've started with like a Slack killer that they charge, I think, $299 for. I think we're paying 10 grand at my old agency for annual Slack now because it's per seat. And his philosophy is really good software, charge once. I'm like, that's what I decided to do. That's really cool. I love that one of my most respected software people in the world, Basecamp's awesome. All of Jason Fried's books are really, really cool. I love that they sort of have this same philosophy around it. Make it cheap, make it useful, make it enjoyable to use, and then just keep on building it, keep on solving new problems and keep making it better and better and better. I'm just having too much fun.
Yeah. So about that, where can people get that? Is it PMaxscript.com?
I'm a terrible marketer of my own stuff, by the way. I just assume everyone's going to know about it and everyone will find it useful and I never have to sell it. I'm terrible at marketing my own stuff. PMaxscript.com. I've also got MCCscript.com. There's an MCC version which will do does the same thing, but just does it for every account in your MCC. And everything is at MikeRhodes.com.au. But yeah, I've got bloody domains all over the place. I really need to spend some time on my own marketing, and maybe I should get AI to help me with that.
Hey, that would probably be a good idea. But before that, since you said you're bad at marketing your own products, I'll do it for you. This is not, we didn't discuss this. This is not that. I'm deciding to plug it because this script is just, if you're running PMax campaigns, it is just a no-brainer to use because it's giving you, even if you're only using it for the insights that it gives on where your spend went across different channels on Google Ads, then it's already worth it. That's the main reason why I'm using it. And next to that, there's so many other features that Mike has added, but just that thing, the performance insights per channel, just gives you the insights you need to really make sure that PMax is working well versus not.
I always forget that that's like the main use case. And I'm so interested in the latest little thing that I built, like the asset report. I just built a landing page report. But yeah, just being able to see that spike when the machine suddenly starts spending on YouTube or display and giving you that thing of, oh, I need to focus. I need to make some changes to that asset group, to that campaign. Thank you.
Yeah.
Said it better than I could.
Search as well, not only displaying video, but search as well. Sometimes, especially with lead gen, I've seen a lot of advertisers or a lot of Google ad specialists struggle with PMax for lead gen because it tends to cannibalize on their existing search campaigns, which sometimes gives them better results and more control. So just that insight as well, like, I'm seeing more on search. You can analyze and check where might that be coming from and make changes accordingly in your campaign structure, whatever
really
that is.
Drill down too. Now you can see that spike, and then you can run the script again with a different date range and look at the search campaigns, look at the engram of the search campaigns, look at the asset group report, and look at the headlines and descriptions and which ones have had a spike. I just had somebody just before we jumped on message me on LinkedIn. I sent him a screenshot of the new asset report, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is so much better than Google's information." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is. I should probably tell people about this." But yeah, I think people will find it. They'll find it useful, and if they like it, they'll buy it, and if they don't, they don't. Yeah, it's all good.
Some will, but that's why also we love spreading the word about these types of things. All right, so
you Lego kits for the kids.
Sorry?
You spruiking it will help me buy some extra Lego kits for the kids. So
oh, nice.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, so let's transition into some of the rapid fire questions that I have. It's just this or that. No, it depends. Yep. So
the first one depends.
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is. That's why this is such an annoying section for you. The first one is Performance Max or standard shopping.
Ugh. If you know what you're doing, standard shopping. If you're relatively new to Google Ads, PMax. You thought I was going to say PMax, but if you really know what you're doing, standard shopping.
But you broke the rules.
It still gets impressions.
You broke the rules.
I broke the rules already on the first question.
No, it's okay. That's why I created these.
Yeah.
This or that's.
Cool.
But yeah, I tend to agree. Google has advertisers' best interest in mind. Do you agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Fair enough.
They optimize for their profit first.
Yeah. And it makes sense as well. I mean, I'm not saying it should be that way, but it's business. It's business. Exactly.
Of course, they look after their shareholders.
Yeah.
You know, and they've given us this amazing tool. And if you want to play the game, you play it their way.
Yeah. Broad match, yes or no?
Eventually.
Okay. If you want to elaborate, feel free.
I wouldn't start there, but can be useful if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. So manual bidding or smart bidding? This one is interesting.
Smart bidding.
Yeah. Will all match types except broad be gone in 2 years?
Yeah, we'll be using search themes in 2 years.
That's what Nicholas was saying as well. I think that's an interesting approach. That could very well be the case. Lastly, will search and shopping campaigns be around in 2 years?
Bloody hope so. Yes. Search is their point of difference over, say, Facebook. Search is also massive on YouTube. So yes, they will still. And a lot of the big guys use shopping as far as I'm aware, not so much PMax. So they will look after their big advertisers.
Let's hope so. Well, actually, this is another one. What's your favorite AI tool right now to use?
𝗪𝗁. It's an AI coding tool. It is magical.
𝗪𝗁. Nice.
I love it. 𝗪𝗁.com.
And another one. What book are you reading right now?
I'm reading. It's on the desk over there. 𝗍𝗄𝗄, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He wrote this epic book, A Gentleman in Moscow. And I'm just reading a book of his short stories at the moment, which is wonderful.
Nice. Good recommendation. When you did your session in the PPC Hub, everyone just wondered about your list of books.
Yeah, I tend to get through a few, but even more so now.
Yeah, more time. Yeah. All right, last question, Mike, before we close it off. If you had to share 3 golden nuggets about driving results with Google Ads, what would that be?
First one, get out of your account. So think about the website. Think about conversion rate optimization, think about your offer, pricing. Probably the easiest way to improve the performance of a Google Ads account is not in the Google Ads account, I think. Secondly, I think you have to have a philosophy. I think you have to have a belief system of why you do what you do, why you do it the way that you do it. Certainly, if you want to move from being a freelancer to employing someone to help you, to then maybe growing a small team, maybe growing an agency, you need to have a way that stuff is done, which actually is probably then number 3 is process. I think this becomes even more important as we move into this world of AI. So all the management books that I would have read over the years, they all say, like, don't tell people how to do stuff. Tell them why you need it. Tell them what needs to be done and then get out of the way. You don't tell people how to do stuff because that removes all of their agency and autonomy and ability for mastery. And that's what people want, right? Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. With AI, that's different because you want this slightly dumb, sometimes wonky, but very enthusiastic thing to do stuff the way that you want it done. And so giving it process, feeding it that, at this point, the way to do that is with words. If you have documented SOPs for all the stuff that you do, you can feed that into ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you use together with all of that data and then say, what should I do next? But if it doesn't know the way that you do things, it isn't going to be able to suggest very good actions. And that's where we're sort of heading, I believe, with AI into this world of agents and agentic behavior of the AI starting to take actions through APIs or whatever. It's a whole nother podcast. But unless you put some constraints around that and say, like, this is the way that we like things done, then it's going to do some really wild and crazy things. Just like if you hired a new person, you sat them down and said, optimize some Google Ads accounts, please. Like, you don't know how they're going to do that. How they did it at their last place might be completely different to the way that you do it. You need SOPs around that. How most of us do it is we don't have very good SOPs because as entrepreneurs, we suck at writing systems. And so people learn by osmosis. They sit next to you and they listen in on your phone calls. And over time, they get better and better. But that's too slow and too inefficient and completely useless if you're trying to teach a machine to do what it is that you do. So I think having really good processes, like we talked about using Loom or having a person create those for you. You as the entrepreneur do not have to create your own systems. Get a book, like there's another book recommendation, Systemology by my mate Dave Jennings. He talks about this and how you can do it, and you can hire his systemologists to create systems for you. I think in the world of AI that's very, very good at language, i.e. words, yes, it's going to get really good at images and videos and everything else as well. But right now it needs words to understand, and SOPs and processes are great. And most people don't have that. So again, massive opportunity if you can do that. Or maybe you help your clients, those small businesses, you help them create that stuff so that they're ahead of the curve and they've got it when they need it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these insights. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and feel free to come back anytime.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Miles. Thanks for having me.
Yep. And for everyone else, thank you for listening or viewing this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Bye.
All right, that's the end of this episode of the PPC Mastery Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you don't want to miss any future episodes, we're going to be back next week. Then don't forget to subscribe and share with a friend, family member, or a colleague, because that's the only way we can grow this show. Now, there's 2 more things I want to share with you. If you want to take your Google Ads game to the next level, the first one is, if you want to get advanced Google Ads tips delivered straight into your inbox on Mondays and Fridays, head over to ppcmastery.com/newsletter to subscribe to our newsletter called the PPC Edge. And next to that, if you want to really take your skills to the next level and become the best Google Ads specialist you can possibly be, then consider joining the PPC Hub, which is our coaching and community platform for experienced Google Ads specialists. You can find everything about it on ppcmastery.com/hub. And with that said, I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.